Hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of r/malicious compliance. In today's episode, want me to go on call even though it takes me hours to travel to and from work and I'm a casual employee? No problem. We have spent millions on this software. Use it. Lady, I'm the teacher. Please stop yelling at my student. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe so that you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Want me to go on call even though it takes me hours to travel to and from work and I'm a casual employee? No problem. This happened about 12 months ago. I am a nurse and work in a relatively specialized field. Due to previous financial difficulties, I had taken on a number of additional jobs in the previous few years and had settled on one that was particularly good for me. I was employed casually in a smaller 6-bedded unit in a private hospital. Because of the nature of my specialty, this particular area required 2 nurses in attendance at all times. 2 nurses to 6 patients is a dream ratio and virtually unheard of in private health. To combat this, most hospitals that have beds for this particular specialty area combine them with another ward so that they can staff us down and allow the regular nurses to cover us. However, for some reason, this hospital had located the beds completely separate to any other unit. This meant they had no choice to safely staff us but to roster 2 nurses on at all times. And our manager stood her ground and refused to budge on that requirement. Because I was casually employed, there was always the possibility that my hours could be cut or shifts canceled at any time. However, because they needed both nurses present at all times, they could not do that. Even if we had no patients in this particular specialty area, they had to keep 2 nurses available in case we needed to admit. If we had no patients at all, some nurses would go on call, but because I relied on public transport, bicycle commuting to get to work, my manager understood that I could not go on call because I could not return to the workplace in a reasonable time, and instead I would be sent to help out in other areas. Our manager had, in addition to her other duties, become the project lead on a large expansion within our facility, and had performed very well in the role. So well, in fact, that when another facility under the same company was expanding, she was headhunted to lead their expansion project as well. She was compelled to a secondment that would require her to live out of state for several months, and as a result, we would be given a new acting manager. To our dismay, we discovered that the acting manager was from a ward where it was well known that the staff could not stand her. Sure enough, within days, she began doing things like canceling our staff and moving her surplus staff into our area when she was low on numbers and overstaffed, costing them to us even though they lacked the appropriate training and experience to work in our area. Anything to make her budget look better, which at the same time made our budget look worse. It all came to a head one morning when, after 2 hours of a 12-hour shift, we discharged our last patient. I was literally on the phone finalizing the patient discharge when our acting manager called the other nurse on the shift and instructed both of us to clock out immediately and go on call. Confused, I rang her back. "Me, hi Em, it's Schmickers. I just got a message saying that you want us to clock out and go home. You may not be aware, although our previous manager was, but I take public transport to and from work. I can't be on call. That doesn't matter. You have no patients. I can't pay for you to be on the ward doing nothing and no other areas require help today. I need you to clock off and go home." Me, are you sure? We are halfway through checking the emergency trolley. There is a massive pile of follow-up calls to make and we haven't even stripped the patient room yet. That doesn't matter. Bring me your phone and keys and clock off. Me, what are you going to do if there is an admission? It will take me over an hour to get back. Well, I'll sit there until you can get back. I was fuming. The other nurse began resealing the emergency trolley and I stopped her. We had been instructed to leave, and leave we would. I marched the phone and keys to our acting manager and handed them over. As I did so, she said, "You can't be paid to sit and make phone calls. That has to be done when you have patients." I replied, "We are busy with the patients when we have patients. Besides, it's only just past 9 a.m., and most of the follow-up calls are to families with children who are busy doing school runs. I wouldn't answer a call from an unknown number before 9 a.m. I handed the keys over, clocked off, and began the journey home. I hadn't reached home before I got a message from my other workplace, asking for a nurse for the night shift and offering an overtime payment. Now, I was booked for a day shift at my second job the next day, and I knew we had no theater cases booked, which meant the likelihood of that shift being canceled was also high. I couldn't afford to sit at home waiting for work if we didn't have patients. But just to be sure, I gave the union a quick call, and they managed to illuminate something wonderful. As a casual employee, I was not entitled to be on call at all. That meant not only could they not ask me to be on call, I was not entitled to the measly $26 allowance that permanent employees received. As soon as I had clocked out, my shift had ended. Armed with that knowledge, I rang my acting manager and informed her that I had been offered paying work that night, and as a consequence, would need to cancel my shift the following day. She was quite hostile, asking, "Do you normally cancel work here to work elsewhere?" I replied, "I don't normally have my shifts canceled at all, but I am not a charity and cannot sit at home unpaid when I could be paid to work elsewhere. I have a family to support." After this call, I sent a quick email to my usual manager, outlining the acting manager's request and why I had left the ward disorganized, the emergency trolley unsealed, and a stack of work not done, and went to bed to have a nap. I was awoken at approximately 16:15 in the afternoon by my wife, looking confused. My acting manager had rung and left a message with her that we were admitting a patient, and she required me back at work. I was bemused. The acting manager should not even have been there at that time of the afternoon, and clearly lacked the stones to talk to me directly. No matter. I rang the hospital supervisor. "Hi, it's Schmickers. I just got a message via my wife that I'm a bit confused about. Apparently there is a patient, and you want me to come into work for a shift." "Supervisor, that's right, we're admitting to your area. We need you back in." "You know my shift was cancelled, right?" "Supervisor, told me you were on call." "Well, I can't be on call, I'm a casual employee. My shift was cancelled. Besides, by the time I've dressed, packed, got on my bicycle, ridden half an hour to my nearest train station, caught the train, changed to a tram, then walked the rest of the way, then showered and changed, it'll be, quick check of the time, 18:30. My shift was meant to end at 19:30. I don't think I'm going to be much help to you." I heard the sound of the phone being covered, and a muffled voice, before shouting and ranting began in the background. It was my acting manager, still clearly there and clutching her pearls about how unreasonable it was that it would take 2 hours for me to return to work. As the ranting continued, I spoke on the phone again. "Supervisor, it's Schmickers. I know you have shouting at you in the background, but right now I'm the person you need to be listening to, because I called you. Is well aware of how long it takes me to return to work, because I told her this morning. She knew when she asked me to clock off that I would not be returning to work. I'm sorry she gave you the impression that I could be on call, but I cannot. Now, as I am not able to assist you any further and I am not on the clock, I will be ending this conversation." And I put the phone down. I got a couple of confused texts about why I wasn't working the next day, and WTF had happened on the ward from the night staff when they arrived and began resealing the emergency trolley and arranging for after-hours bed cleans. I had a week off after that. Unfortunately, this particular manager appears to be Teflon coated, but I've never had a shift cancelled since. We have spent millions on this software. Use it. I'm sure a lot of us have had call center experience and the gripes that come with, so I hope you guys can get a chuckle from mine. I worked at a telecommunication customer service a few years back, and it was my first non-fast food job, so I was pretty stoked, and to be honest, the work environment was sweet. I was doing customer support for one of the big packages in the Midwest cable internet VoIP phones package. We had to take a technical test upon interviewing, and if you managed to score high enough, they would allow you to move straight into their small business support team instead of starting in residential. I was in school for network systems administration at the time, and I murdered that test. They called me within an hour of leaving and offered me the job working for their small business support. The truly great part about doing small business support instead of residential was we had a plethora of extra tools and didn't have to follow the workflow their intuitive troubleshooting program would suggest for us to do for issues, which usually lead to much faster results and happier customers, as we were able to really show off just how far we were willing to go to resolve their issues instead of just reading the screen word for word. A few months pass and our call center starts losing some of their calls to overseas centers. As to why, your guess is as good as mine, but it led to the center deciding we would be moving all small business calls to a center in Texas, and everyone at our center would be forced to go residential, but we would keep our same pay. So I wasn't terribly upset over it at the time. They told us, however, about a week and they implemented their worst policy change. We want all of our reps to follow the intuitive troubleshooting program word for word based on the issue your customer is having. Now, I wasn't super upset until I realized how dumb this software really was. You would select someone has no internet and it would ask you to have them try to browse to a website. You could put that the modem had no lights and they would still suggest the same 3 things regardless. Try to browse, try to reboot, press the reset pin. On what would be my last day, I get called in for helping a customer log into their modem to reset their Wi-Fi password when my workflow advised me to reboot. I explained my reasoning and had them finish the call to verify the customer was stoked, but they didn't care because I was wasting the millions they spent on this stupid software that I can only guess was coded by someone who had never used the products in their life. So from then on I did just as the workflow advised. I rebooted, pissed people off and ignored their concerns to continue with the workflow regardless of how dumb the next action item it wanted me to take was. Cable box has no lights on it. No problem, I'll ship you a new remote because that's what my software says to do. Oh, you need a Wi-Fi password and isn't on the back of your modem. Guess I'll send you a $100 technician to replace it. This led to my boss pulling me back in the next day to say that I was taking everything too literally and needed to decide to either conform or quit. I handed him my badge and left without a word. They called for the next 2 weeks on and off as half the center started hitting the same frustrations and issues. About 3 months later they shut down. TLDR, company made me use trash software to troubleshoot issues. Followed their software instead of critically thinking, and was yelled at for being too literal and quit. Lady, I'm the teacher, please stop yelling at my student. While I was 21 and studying for my languages and teaching degree, one of my teachers had a languages school and offered me a job to teach English and French since I'm fluent in both. I would teach 4 times a week and worked with the 4 group ages children, teens, young adults and adults. On Wednesdays I started my afternoon with children and ended it with adults. Most adults were plus 40 professionals who went to class after work, and some of them wore very formal clothes because of that. One of the kids from the children's intermediate class loved learning English and was a fast learner, so we recommended her to attend an extra children's conversational club class on Monday higher level while still attending her normal lessons on Wednesdays. She was very excited about it and her dad, divorced parents, was fine with it. I don't know what the kid's mom understood, but she thought we somehow were setting her back, and the woman decided she couldn't wait and needed to argue with us that same day. Adults' lessons started at 7 p.m. and it was around 6:55, so some of the adults were chilling and talking about their week before class when the lady arrived. She looked around the classroom and directly went to Paul, a very shy suit-wearing bank manager. Crazy mom, how dare you to pull my kid out of her class and put her in a level for beginners? Paul, huh? Me, miss, please. Crazy mom, be quiet, I'm talking with the teacher. Some of the other students were laughing. Crazy mom, stop laughing, you losers. My kid is 9 and knows more English than all of you. Me, this is enough, please get out of the classroom. Crazy mom, don't tell me what to do. Me, I'm not telling you this again, please leave the classroom and stop yelling at my students. Crazy mom, pointing at Paul crazily. Me, look miss, we can talk in my office, but you need to leave this room now. One of the students who owned a restaurant made a joke about dealing with annoying people like her on the daily, and the crazy mom got even angrier, but I managed to get her out of the room. I explained again that I was the teacher, but she refused to talk to me because you are so young, and yelled a popular yet ridiculous saying about young people. That really pissed me off, and I wasn't very kind when I told her, look miss, I'm their teacher, and I'm your kid's teacher, so if you please stop acting like a child, and tell what your problem is, I might help you. Somehow that snapped her out of her tantrum and she left slowly and loudly, stomping downstairs. It literally took her like 5 minutes to get down 16 steps. I went back to the classroom, apologized to the students, and we had a pretty nice conversation about how culturally here is quite common for middle-aged, old people to look down on younger professionals. Some of them even accepted that in the past acted like the lady in a situation but would never do it again, and others say they would give extra support to their younger colleagues. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.